who co-organized this conference together with leaders, the speakers who are going soon to give us some useful food for thought, and all people and friends who are following the conference and will help us to enrich it with questions, issues, and contents. So, why EDOS, an Italian study and research center that has been studying for about 30 years migrations in Italy and in the European and international context? So why EDOS thought and proposed such a project to the European Commission? Well, as you know, at the end of the Second World War, hundreds of thousands of people in Europe left their destroyed countries and moved to other countries within the same continent to seek a job and to allow their families and children to survive. From the 50s of last century, many Italians emigrated to Germany, to France, to Belgium, to United Kingdom, and other European countries, as well as out of Europe, looking for a future for themselves and their relatives. 20 years after, Italy stopped being an immigration country, one of the more relevant in the world, as you know, with about 30 million people emigrating in 100 years, and became an immigration country. At the beginning of this century, it already was an important immigration country in Europe, and today it's the second most important immigration country in the European Union after Germany. But its long past immigration history doesn't seem to have taught enough to Italy. For half a century, since immigrants overcame the number of immigrants, many Italians and many Italian politicians continued to consider immigrants as dangerous invaders, no matter if third country nationals or European citizens. And when Romania became a member state in 2007, most of them felt the pain that Italy was going to be invaded by Romanians, without knowing and realizing that Romanians have already become the first foreign group for number of immigrants in Italy just several years before. So that if an invasion took place in Italy, it happened previously, but no one realized it. And even today, we consider foreigners, Romanians, Polish, and many other European groups, not only in Italy, true, just meaning that hard work has still to be done, recognizing the other European citizens as having the same rights and the same concrete and very effective opportunities to move, to live, to fully participate in the political and social life of the other European countries they entered. And this is exactly what the Eureka project would like to facilitate and to promote. So thank you very much, all of you. And I know we have with us Mrs. Helen Lisey. She's a policy officer of the European Commission. And if she likes, I would like to ask her if she wants to open our works by making an introduction also. Thank you so much.
So do you hear me? Yes, I just want to say hello to everybody, and your project is very interesting, and it's very well managed and followed, carefully followed by the coordinator. So I'm very happy to listen your meeting today.
Thank you very much. So please, Antonio and Norbert.
I will take the floor, Luca. Thank you very much, Helene. Thank you very much, Luca. Thank you very much to all of you that are assisting to this meeting and who did organize the meeting and will contribute to this meeting. I wish to welcome you also from my institution, ACLI e.V. It's a little workers' movement organization within the larger ACLI family, quite experienced in European learning and vocational education, as well as in creating structures and networks in transnational and transcultural learning, involving migrants, refugees, and mobile European citizens. We are in the south, located in the southwest of Germany. I join you today from Tübingen. My name is Norbert Kreuzkamp. I'm a sociologist and educational worker, executive president of ACLI e.V. And if I remember well, it was in 1983, so some 38 years ago, I coordinated my first European project. I'm very happy that together with our Italian and Romanian partners, we could win the creation, and by our European network Tandem Plus, also our French and Portuguese partners, to work together in this quite ambitious Eureka project. For our today's conference, I want to welcome all the partners, the speakers, in a very specific way, the stakeholders. There's quite a large number of participating here in this conference, but also, I assume, others who are looking at us in the YouTube. I would like to underline, and for me it's quite important, the workshop character of our meeting. We ask you as stakeholders, as guests, to contribute with your feedbacks and your consideration, your ideas. And so you are the protagonists of our conference, and we are very grateful for your contributions. And I'm very glad that we have so many people who joined us. Please feel free and invited to express your doubts, your suggestions of improvement, and for our instruments we partly will present. I'm looking forward so much to a rich and exciting conference and these next 2 hours. Thank you very much. Antonio, it's up to you now.
Thank you, Norbert, and thank you to everybody. Good morning. Once again, we are very happy you are here, and thanks, really thanks. So I know that all of us were very curious to hear that you invited key speakers, and thus start the debate, the discussion, the dialogue with them. So therefore, I will try to present the Eureka project in a few minutes, and with the support of some slides. So I'm going to share the presentation. Just a moment. So we started with the awareness that still now could you see the presentation, please?
Yes.
So we started with the awareness that EU mobile citizens still met several obstacles in terms of entry rights, residence rights, in terms of wall of papers, or what we mean, they met problems because of bureaucratic obstacles. It's not
I told you, we still see your screen with many files, but not yet the presentation.
So thank you. I will share again. Is it okay now?
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you. So, and in general terms, we were also aware about some discrimination cases in the framework of labor market, schooling, or even different fees, or even for specific categories, such a kind Roma mobile citizens and so on. So, in general terms, when we were writing this proposal, we were thinking also about the widespread misperception of EU mobile citizens that in many member states, among media representatives or even among policymakers, are commonly considered as migrants, not as EU mobile citizens. So, starting from this consideration, we launched the project. The objective was to find the missing invention. So the overall objective of the project was to contribute to facilitate the exercise of free movement rights and the inclusion and participation of EU mobile citizens in the host member states through a joint local, national, and transnational circulation of capacity and or expertises. So, we thought that this was possible thanks to an advanced level of access and usability of digital information. So, by promoting the existing e-services, by facilitating more cooperation between the authorities of the country of origin and the country of destination, and finally, most of all, last but not least, tailoring information and assistance to the individual needs by testing an ad hoc one-stop shop web portal and app that was called keyformobility.eu. So during the first months of the project, we implemented a quantitative analysis that confirmed that improved IT tools could be very important to be an effective answer to the EU mobile citizens' needs. Now you can see a cloud. They are the most important words from our researches that we gathered, interviewing stakeholders, gathering questionnaires, studying, analyzing the literature, and so on. So first of all, information, then access to the information, citizenship, website, languages, and useful. So these were our keywords for the implementation of the project. And we did preparing and developing a portal. And you can see a preview of the portal and an app. And we will launch these IT tools just next week. So this is a preview just for you. And you can see that we try to make tailor tools and with even a georeferential system to find the solutions, to find the offices, the services that EU mobile citizens could need in order to solve the big problem of the access to up-to-date and updated information. So, I'm very grateful to all the Eureka consortium partners. You can find here the list. And really, as a coordinator, I'm very pleased to have worked with them. And I think that I can stop the presentation. I try to give you a very short overview about our work until now, because it's very important to give the floor to our speakers. So just to conclude, I would like to say that just to remind once again the workshop character of this meeting. So we have 2 hours and we hope to have 2 hours of dialogue. So that's really all from me. Please, Norbert, I will give back the floor in order to introduce the first session. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Antonio. Once again, welcome from my side. I will moderate the first session. This is 3/4 of an hour, and we are quite in time. The corona pandemic had a strong impact on our lives, on our political, economic, social, and personal lives. Many local, regional, national, and European actors had been and are still challenged to create solutions and new future strategies. Also, the mobility in Europe has been touched quite a lot, and consequently, also our projects. Antonio has given us a first idea of what the products of this project will be. And in fact, this pandemic has touched us, not only in the sense that the meeting had to be interrupted, the missions and transferred to digital and online events. Also, this meeting should have been in a physical way in Tübingen. It was programmed. But the pandemic, in fact, has touched also the reason why, la raison d'être of our project. Mobility of European citizens as fundamental right and key characteristic of a united Europe. This was all the introduction of the president of EDAS before about. This background, we want to focus in the first part of our conference on the question of challenges and impact caused on our project and the products by the pandemic. The title, Intra-European Mobility, in this time, in times of pandemic, the challenges of information and support of mobile European workers and citizens, experiences, requests and proposals from the practice, from practitioners. It's a real pleasure for me to welcome together with you Stanislava Rupp-Bullin. Stanislava, you will give us a short view on your work with some specific observation on what happened during the pandemic and how you tried and try to face the challenges. And you will certainly give us some ideas about what might be specific new or different needs for mobile workers and citizens in times of pandemic. Let me just before your speech. Okay. It is always good if the people who enter try to close their microphones. Not always we can do it. So, Stanislava, can you raise the hand? Stanislava, I see you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Stanislava, you are a lawyer by profession, and you have been working in fair mobility at Stuttgart location since some November, I think November 2015. You will tell us more about the project in favor of weak mobile European workers and citizens, and also its network between the DGB, the Confederation of European Trade Unions, and other workers' organizations. I understood that your mother was born in the Czech Republic. You yourself have been born in Prague, and Czech is your second mother tongue. So you yourself are a mobile European citizen. For your actual work, you told me it was quite helpful that you have been lawyer in the field of labor and social administration. In the form of professional experiences, you had also in public administration and social law for weak people in the labor market. Dear Stanislava, attorney of law, It's an honor and a pleasure for me and for all of us. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Norbert. Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for the invitation to the conference today. Can we show my presentation, please?
Yes, Stanislava, I will follow you. Just a while, I'm going to open.
Yeah, I'm very glad to have the opportunity to talk today about my work at Fair Mobility and about the situation of migrant workers in Germany. Oh, thank you. That's the presentation, some slides about the work. Fair Mobility, in Germany, it's called Faire Mobilität, in English, Fair Mobility. It's an advisory network. Fair Mobility was founded in 2011, and since last year, we have a permanent founding. Before, we were a project, and now we are glad to have a permanent founding. We are financed by the Federal Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, the German Trade Union Confederation, and some project partners. In total, we have 11 counseling locations, and we offer advice in labor and social rights in 11 languages. The languages are Polish. The languages are Polish, Romanian, Bulgarian, Czech, Slovakian, Hungarian, Croatian, Bosnian, Serbian, German, and English. The next slide, please. That's a map with our advisory centers in Germany. We have locations in Stuttgart, Mannheim, Munich, Nuremberg, Frankfurt, Erfurt, Dortmund, Reda, Oldenburg, Kiel, and of course in Berlin. Every advisory center of Fair Mobility has a focus. The advisory centers have different focuses. And for example, in Stuttgart, our focus is the sector transportation and logistics. In Dortmund, for example, it is the meat industry. And every advisory center offer advice in different languages. For example, in Stuttgart, I have colleagues who speak Polish, Croatian, Bosnian, and Serbian. I speak Czech. And in Munich, we have colleagues who speak Bulgarian and Romanian. And if a person from Romania contacts us and we can't understand each other, we provide the contact details to our colleagues in Munich, and the person can contact the advisory center in Munich. The next slide, please. The mobile workers contact us via mail. They call us, they come to our advisory center, but we also go to the working places and we do outreach counseling. Especially during the coronavirus pandemic, our centers were closed. We have to close our centers, but we did still outreach counseling. For example, we went to the motorways, parking areas, and talked to the lorry drivers there and informed them about the minimum working conditions in Germany, about the minimum wage in Germany, or we stay in front of meat factories and talk to the workers there about the working conditions. Or our next example, in the last weeks, we went to several fields and talked to the seasonal workers there. Example, during the strawberry harvest the last weeks. Next slide, please. We have created a lot of information materials to inform the mobile workers. There are information materials about working and living in Germany in general, but also especially for lorry drivers, for seasonal workers, for working in the meat industry, for construction workers, for a lot of sectors, and for a lot of working situations. The information is about the minimum wage in Germany, about minimum working conditions, and so on. We distribute the information in paper form, for example, when we do outreach counseling, or in electric form when we are contacted via mail. The next slide, please. We have some video and audio information, for example, about seasonal working and coronavirus. And the next slide, please. And at least we have two websites. Our first website includes information about our work, about fair mobility, our contact details of the advisory centers, but also information materials. And our second website includes information about the labor right in Germany for migrant workers in 7 languages. We have Polish, we have Romanian, Bulgarian, Hungarian, Croatian, German, and Russian. And we want to make more languages, but so far we have 7 languages. Yeah, and of course we are also on Facebook. Next slide, please. Who contacts the advisory centers? I talked about mobile workers. They so-called mobile workers are persons who come to Germany for a certain period. They usually don't want to stay in Germany. Often the family and the children stay in the home country, and then mobile workers come to Germany only to work, and maybe after 6 months working, they leave Germany and go back to their home countries. They have usually only little or no knowledge of German language. And typical forms of employment is posting. They are often posted workers. That means that their employer is settled in Poland and Romania and so on, and they are posted to Germany to work here for a certain period. Or often they are temporary agency workers. Sometimes they are workers in the context of service contracts between companies. And sometimes they are also bogus self-employed workers. Sometimes they don't know about the fact that they are self-employed workers, but the employer, they think they have an employer, but they are self-employed. The next slide, please. Here are some statistical figures from our advisory center in Stuttgart. The top 4 of countries of origin in our advisory in Stuttgart are Croatia, Poland, Bosnia, and Serbia. That's not a surprise because last year we offered advice in Polish, Croatian, Bosnian, and Serbian language. The mobile workers look for the right language and contact a person who speaks their language. A person from Croatia will contact the advisory center in Stuttgart, and a person from Romania can contact our advisory center in Munich. The next slide, please. And here are some facts about the employment sectors. The mobile workers who seek advice in our advisory center in Stuttgart work often in the transportation, logistics, warehousing, construction, and metal and electronics. That's our top 4 employment sectors. Now I want to tell you some typical cases from our practice. Often, very often, the wages are not paid or just partly paid by the employer. Less hours are paid than actually worked. The mobile worker worked 10 hours a day and the employer pay only for 8 hours. Or there is no payment for times of sickness. Very often, the employer doesn't want to pay the wage for the last month if a worker resigns from his job. And often there are high deductions for accommodation, transport, and meals. And the problem is that the companies, the employers, cheating on their employees, assume that they will not take any actions. And very often they are right. The next slide, please. Sometimes there is a double dependence based on accommodation. The accommodation is linked with the employment contract. Sometimes the rent is deducted directly from the wage. And the loss of accommodation is a treat potential. As just mentioned, the workers are sometimes registered as self-employed without their knowledge. They have no health insurance, and the whole risk lies with the workers. For example, if an accident happens, they have no insurance. That's a really big problem. Often the mobile workers work as temporary agency workers, and times without work, without assignment, are not paid. It's illegal, but the employer don't pay. The employees charged with unjustified minus hours, wage premiums are result, and for example, driving periods are not paid, what's also illegal. The next slide, please. What are typical cases during the coronavirus pandemic? First of all, the cases during the pandemic are in total the same as before. And I think after the coronavirus pandemic, there will be still the same problems. But now we have more problems, we have additional problems. An additional problem is problems with the quarantine and entry requirements. For example, a Czech electrician drive every weekend to the Czech Republic and then to Germany to work. And then he has problems to come to Germany to his work. That's an additional problem during the pandemic. Another problem is that wages or short-time allowances, the so-called Kurzarbeitergeld in Germany, are not paid by the employer during periods of plant closure, decline in orders, or quarantine. It's also illegal, but the employer do so, they think it's okay. My employee will not want to stay here for working, so it's okay. The next slide, please. Our advisory approach. Our advisory centers offer advice and support on issues regarding labor and social law. We provide information. Workers call us and ask us, what's the minimum wage in Germany? Or I have got a working contract. Can you check it, please? Is it okay? Is it maybe is it illegal? Is it illegal? If there are problems, we try to make an out-of-court strategy. We contact the employers. We, if it's necessary, we connect support with legal proceedings. We accompany cases with media attention. We do a collective approach as far as possible. And very important for us, our principle is the advice seeker is a responsible person, and we support empowerment. Norbert asked me to try the app before the conference, and I tried your app. I think it's a great tool to inform the people who come to Germany, and I think the information are very useful. I think it would be great to have more countries and more languages. And of course, it would be good to have more detailed information. For example, about labor rights for the people who came to Germany for working. And I think it would be great to have the contact details of the advisory centers also as additional information in the app. But I think it's in total a very good tool, and yeah, it's good, yeah. Then the next slide, please. So thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward for your questions.
Stanislava, thank you very much indeed. This was a very interesting look from the ground, from the reality in which we do find many European citizens that came to our country for work reasons. And this is one of the most important reasons, because the work is not only the reason to earn some money, but it's many times it's also the basis for all our rights and all our possibilities. As we understood, for work reasons we can go to a place, but when we have that work, we also have to have the right to go to that place, also in pandemic times. So thank you very much for your I think for the wonderful and important work that you are doing. I must say, I'm a little bit not surprised, but how many quite illegal situations you would have in this quite powerful state of Germany, that is supposed in many cases to be very, very, very along to the rules and so on. But I think it's quite important to have had this view. And now I would like to open the space. We do have some half an hour for your contributions, for your questions to Stanislava, and for your contribution also to this issue. And I would like to ask you to raise the hand. I'm not sure if you all know how this can be done. I try to do it right now, but you can also do it like that. If if you do it with the tool that is envisaged, we can see it maybe better. So who would like to take the floor, please? I see Pietro Lunetto.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a couple of basic questions for Stanislava. So the first one is the citizens and the workers that will ask to your network some helps. Do they need to have a membership to something? And the second question is, are you thinking also to broaden the service also in the basic information about how to settle down in Germany, like, you know, insurance or some basic stuff that for workers could be important for their contract, for instance. You know, if you need to stay in Germany for a while, probably you need to register to the commune, to the town hall. Are you thinking to broaden a little bit your scope also to cover this one, or it will be only focus on workers, on contract and all the items you have just mentioned?
Thank you for your questions. Your first question, no membership is necessary. The persons who contact us, it's not necessary that they are members of the trade unions in Germany. And the second question, we have indeed the focus to workers, but we also provide information in general about health insurance in Germany. But focus, we have to focus to workers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pietro, for your question, and Stanislava for your answer. I would like to encourage all of you to take the floor. It could be with some more questions to Stanislava. It could also be with some contribution. So please take the floor. Raise the hand.
Norbert,
Miruna, I see you. Please.
Okay, thank you very much. So thanks to Stanislava for her presentation. And may I ask her, last year we have some outbreaks during the pandemic between Romanian workers in Germany. So did you include in your assistance program some tracking program or some tasting or some information about the vaccination? I don't know. So something about the pandemic to prevent future outbreaks. Thank you.
Thank you to Miruna. Stanislav, I would say you just can open your microphone whenever you want.
Thank you for your question. On our website, we have general information about the coronavirus, but of course, information about vaccination, for example, is not the focus of our work. So we have, there are other websites about from the state with this information. So it's not our focus. We have a little bit of information about the coronavirus without not depending to the working situation, but not so much.
Maybe, Stanislava, I would like to join a little bit or to do another question on this behalf. How did you in your network within the DGB and within the Fair Mobility, how did you discuss these events? You told us before that, for example, it is Dortmund responsible for the meat industry, and we had quite some difficulty with the meat industry, but not only. I know that we also had some difficulty in seeing some resistance of employers in testing, in accepting the possibility of home officing. Do you discuss these issues, and do these problems come up by the clients that are contacting you?
Thank you for your question. Yes, of course, we discuss these issues. And if we see, for example, in the meat industry, there are not single cases. There are problems in general. Then it's an issue or a question for the German Trade Union Confederation. And then they can start a political campaign. Our job is to offer advice, but if we see, oh, there are big problems in general, not single cases, we can distribute our experiences to the German Trade Union Confederation, and they can decide if it's a problem that they can use for a political action or political talk to the state, to the government. And I want to add something. Norbert, you said that you are a little bit surprised or not surprised about the problems in Germany. It's a strong state, it's a rich state. And I want to add something. Usually the workers without problems don't need our support. So we have only the problem cases. No worker without problems will call us, oh, everything great. So we have only the problems.
Stanislav, I understand this very well, but you know, only the people who are really ill and sick go to the hospitals. But nevertheless, managing the hospitals is the health question is an issue that is important for all of us, for all citizens. So I understand that you are a kind of antenna of the real difficult situations, but you still have always people who do contact you. There might also be some people who don't know of your existence. So how do you do to find I understood that you did these meetings out in the field, going on the parking places at the highways, but I assume there might be many, many more parking places at the highways that you can visit. So how can you ensure to have a broad audience and a broad participation, and that the people know about you?
Yes, you're right. I think a lot of workers don't know about us. We try everything to get the information to the workers. We use a lot of tools, our websites, our information material in paper form. And for example, we go to a parking area and talk to a lorry driver, and he receives our information material, and sometimes we ask, do you have colleagues? Can we give you 10 leaflets? And then he can distribute the information materials to his colleagues. Yes, we try to use different tools and do our best to distribute the information. But of course, if we had 20 advisory centers, it will be not enough.
So we are still waiting for your contributions. This is an invitation to all of you, but I would just add some little questions, Stanislava, on the last thing that you have said. I understood that one of the principal key instruments is for you that you use the language of the people who come, because you do not pretend that the people will all have done 2 years German language course, and this is the reality. So we in Europe had always this, let us say, problem and this big challenge of the different languages. The diversity of the language is a big richness for us in Europe, but also for our instruments in the Eureka project. We do have only 4 languages, yes? And these are for each country exemplary languages. I'm quite happy that, at least with your experiences in Stuttgart, Croatian is an important language we have chosen beneath the Italian and the English, also Croatian language. So what do you think, what advice would you give us to make our instrument still more useful? Is the language enlarged, the language question, is this a big issue? What do you think?
Yes, I think it's a big issue, the language and the information issue. I think it would be better to have more languages. For example, Polish. Polish is a very, in Germany, a very important language for mobile workers. A lot of mobile workers are come from Poland, but also I think it's a big issue to provide more information, especially for the workers.
Thank you, Stanislava. I see a question written in the chat, and I see Marina, she's asking for the floor. Please, Marina.
Yes, thank you. I am the Eureka project evaluator. I thank you, Stanislava, for the very interesting presentation and information she provided us. One of my questions was exactly the question that Norbert has just asked. So I go to the second one. The second one is, how do you see this website and app, the Eureka websites and app, in relationship to the services that the information you provide in Germany? Do you see it as a possibly complementary source of information, or a sort of propedeutical, let's say, the first gate one could access when wanting to come to Germany, or something else? And the third question is, you highlighted the unfortunately several illegal situations one worker could be trapped in. And honestly, I was surprised that this happens in Germany as well, as much as in Italy. But I wonder, in my role of evaluator, I wonder if some warning on these points could or should be included in the web portal and the app in the future. I don't mean immediately, but we know that the portal, the Eureka portal, will be, in theory, for some time. It is being launched now, just now.
Thank you, Marina. Stanislava, maybe you could try to respond to the Marina, and maybe you can see, I'm not sure if you can see the question that has been put. I will read it afterwards. Okay, thank you. Please take the floor.
Thank you for your questions, Marina. I think the app is not only for workers. The app is for all persons who come, for example, to Germany. So there are information in general, and our information are for workers in special. And we have to focus on workers. So I think, of course, you can you can make additional information in the app for working situations concerning labor law. So it's I think it's an additional information, but there are different situations because the app is not only for workers. It's also for people who come to visit Munich. And I'm not sure if I understood your second question.
What was my second question? Was it about the one about what kind of usefulness this app and website can provide to your work, which is quite wide and comprehensive?
Yeah, I think it would be useful. I'm still not sure if I understand your question well, but sorry, I try to answer. I think, for example, it would be good to have an additional information in your app about the minimum wage in Germany, because it's a big problem. Often employers in Germany don't pay the German minimum wage. And if you have in your app, for example, the information about the German minimum wage, every person who works in Germany has to right to get €9.60 for every working hour in Germany. I think it's a very useful additional information. And for more information, maybe you can add our website there or our advisory center. Is it okay, like an answer? Is it an answer for your question, or?
Maybe,
Thank you.
Stanislava, the idea of Marina was also if our instruments of our web could be also for some workers the first step to join you. So if we should make a little bit more effort to link our services to services that already exist, I think we did have, and we do have, certainly a link to fair mobility. But for example, we did not yet put all the places in Germany where you have your services. And certainly, if I understand well, in times of the corona pandemic, you did find this possibility and the need to do all in a digital way. So maybe a last question from my side is also, you have now a lot of experience on a digital advice. How do you consider consultancy for these people that you are with, by email, by chat, by video conferencing? Would you suggest us, for example, and I see Horia is raising the hand, okay, you will be the next. Do you think that it would be useful that our Eureka application and app and the website also would have a kind of direct face-by-face digital advice? Thank you. Maybe, Horia, you would like also to join your question now, and Stanislava can answer then to all the questions.
Okay, thank you. It's a bit longer, if you allow me. First of all, well, I'm from Romania and I follow the issue of mobility for some time. In this capacity, I was somehow informed about what Fair Mobility is doing in Germany, and I must say that it's a great job. I'm happy that today I found about the Key for Mobility site. I looked a bit into it during this session, and I noted that also the Romanian language is present. I just wonder whether the Romanian language could be available also for other countries than Italy. For instance, in Germany, where it would be useful, I think, for the Romanian workers there. Because as you mentioned before, the language is a huge barrier, in particular for temporary workers, and it is important to have access to right information at hand every time. And just a question for those working directly with mobile workers, for instance, Fair Mobility, have you found in your activity, in the last years, many instances where rules regarding the coordination of social security in EU have been breached, for instance, regarding, let's say, not adding employment periods in view of unemployment benefits? Thank you.
Thank you, Ria. I'm looking a little bit on our clock, on the time, and I think, Antonio, you should help me. I would suggest that we can just ask a last person to do some question in this first phase, and then I would like to ask Stanislava to answer to all these many questions. So if there's anybody who would like to raise their hand still for this first session, we'll have afterwards a short break maybe.
Norbert, we have two written questions also for Mrs. Stanislava.
Right, I will read them. I can only see one. I see the question whether the European Union regulation amending regulation 910 of the year 2014 on European digital identity can be helpful. It is a proposal for a regulation whereby many member states will provide companies and citizens those digital wallets with documents, driver license, graduation, diploma, and others. So this was a question. And the second question, distance learning for unaccompanied foreign minors. What tools do you have adopted in Germany, and do they work? This is a quite large question that maybe not only Stanislava might respond. And there is Miruna, who said she totally agrees to Riga about the language options. So thank you all, to you all. I would say that now we will hear Stanislava, please.
Norbert, can you please repeat the question about the diplomas?
So I just read it. There's a proposal of regulation based on the regulation in 2014. There's a proposal whereby member states will provide companies and citizens those digital wallets with documents, driver license, graduation diploma, and others. We have discussed it also right now with the new certificate about vaccination, COVID-19. So I assume, I'm not sure if I understood well this question. maybe the person who put it can give us a little bit of help. Yes. Okay, Stanislav, I would just suggest that you try to answer.
I will start to answer the questions.
Thank you.
Okay. Unfortunately, I had a little bit problems with my connection, so maybe I try to answer it. Okay, so Norbert, thank you for your question. So I offer advice usually via telephone and via mail, and not face-by-face digital advice. So I can't. I think it's a problem for us because we have a lot of work, and to do directly face-by-face digital advice. I think we can't make it. We can't do it. But of course, it's an interesting issue, but not yet for fair mobility. Then Romanian is a very important language at fair mobility, and I think that last year the most cases at fair mobility from all 11 counseling locations were from workers from Romania. So we have a lot of cases from Romanian workers, a lot of cases concerning social insurance, employment benefits. Yes, we have all these problems, all these cases. The Romanian workers are the most advice seekers at fair mobility. So I think Romanian is a very important language, and we will next year we will have more advisors that speak Romanian because it's a very important language. Then the question about distance learning. What tools have you adopted in Germany? We try to make information sessions about Facebook. We started last year with Facebook information evenings, also on Saturday, on Sunday. And the workers are very interested. Some of them work the whole day, Monday till Friday or till Saturday, and they are grateful if they have the possibility to join an information evening on Saturday or on Sunday. Also, the workers in the care sector, in the domestic care sector, they work the whole day, 24 hours a day sometimes, or often, indeed often, not sometimes. And if they have the possibility to join a Facebook information session, it's a great tool to reach them. Okay, and the last question, I would also like to point out another similar project, Global Local. I don't know Global Local. Norbert, do you know it?
Yeah, this was a proposition for you, just to sign up and maybe to subscribe to it. Shall I say now a few words?
Yes, Peter, very shortly, please.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. We have a pretty similar project, but it is focused on another target group, is on young persons, and on especially from disadvantaged area, and to help them deal with these all the obstacles in promoting mobility for learning and work. So we have a partnership, 5 European countries, and we are developing these tools to help guidance counselors, teachers, other workers in the youth sector to deal with these challenges young people meet in using mobility opportunities for their study and work. And if you like, so some of the needs analysis, the international reports are ready now, and also some case studies prepared for with examples from all these countries, and they will be soon on the website. And also you can check we have a game with different scenarios dealing with these obstacles that young people have in facing mobilities. So you can recommend, if you know young persons, this application, this game. And also for workers with young people, the tools that will be developed. So I will just post the website of the project and the Facebook, so you can follow the results when they will be ready. Thank you very much.
Peter, thank you very much to you. There's a last raise of hand, and then I would like to close the first session. Please, Romulus, take the floor.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation at this workshop. My intention was to very briefly present the Solvit network, of which I am part of. I am part of Solvit Center Romania, and the Solvit networks aims to solve problems due to the misapplication of EU law by public authorities in a cross-border context, and also in the absence of a court case. If the problem is sent to the judicial courts, then we are not competent, because we are an informal and amicable problem-solving network based on dialogue. We mostly use informal means of communication like email and telephone in order to reach out to authorities. The system is based on centers from 2 countries collaborating, the home center and the center where the problem appeared, the lead or responsible center. I also want to mention where you can find Solvit. In Romania, it is found in the
maybe you could
ministry.
Put it in the chat. Is this okay?
Yeah.
So we can read it. This would be wonderful.
I'll leave the idea. It's at the MFA. I leave the link and the address. And in the context of everything you're discussing today, if problems appear, you can contact Solvit to try to solve them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I would like to thank you all for the participating to this first session. We do have 11:50 now, and we would like to have a short break, 10 minutes. So we start, Antonio, I think we start at 12 o'clock in time. But I would like to thank in a specific way, Stanislava, to you for your presence, for your contributions. I think that we can learn from you, especially one thing, that we are near to the people who do need us, and that you have done from a project a service that is structural. I think without that, we cannot offer 5 languages, 6 languages, more languages. I see the need to offer Romanian language in Germany and many other situations like that. But I think maybe this project, Antonio, will be, as all projects, a kind of avant-garde to trial, but certainly we need in the future And we have seen this in a specific way also during the pandemic. We need in the future these digital services to reach the people, and we have to use digital ways of consultancy in different European languages. So thank you very much for you all, and I would suggest you to have a short break and to come back at 12 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so we are almost ready to restart. Welcome back to the second session. So thank you for all the attendees. So I think we can start. We have still 39 attendees. So welcome back. Welcome back. And before introducing the next speaker, I have a little surprise for you. So we are very grateful to Mrs. Alessandra Moretti, a member of the European Parliament, who offered us a video message on this topic. So I kindly ask to my colleague Giuseppe to share the video.
Freedom of movement of persons, together with the free movement of goods, services and capital, is one of the 4 fundamental freedoms guaranteed by legal system of the European Union. It's a core value on which our union lies. The Schengen Acquis represents its key milestone. Long before the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic, the European Parliament fought hard to uphold the right to free movement, calling on the member states to comply with the treaty provisions on EU rules and condemning the continuing reintroduction of internal border checks. As we all experienced, it has been a dramatic year for freedom of movement, by far the most dramatic since the conclusion of the Schengen agreements. The COVID-19 pandemic has led a majority of member states to reintroduce internal border controls, close borders, and apply restrictions on travel from the other EU countries. In that particular phase, this was a necessary step in order to protect public health and save lives. The containment of the virus had to be placed as the #1 priority in those dramatic days. However, this situation shouldn't be prolonged after the health crisis is over. The European Parliament has already expressed its position about this situation and asked for a swift return to a fully functioning Schengen area, as soon as the health situation will allow for it. We have the duty to ensure that, once the emergency is over, any remaining restrictions on our freedoms are lifted. After that, we will remain vigilant in order to protect the rights of every citizen as provided by the treaties. That is why it's so important that the Parliament has succeeded in introducing a sunset clause to the digital COVID certificate. In the rule of law, no freedom can be limited indefinitely. The vaccination plan is on track and the effects are clearly visible. Let's be patient for a little longer, keeping clear in mind the lesson we learned from this pandemic. We should never take our freedoms for granted.
So, it was an honor for us to receive this contribution. And frankly speaking, it's not a case we wanted to start the second session with the Mrs. Moretti message. As highlighted by Mrs. Moretti, we have a dramatic year behind us for inter-EU mobility. Moretti, a majority of member states reintroduced internal border controls, closed borders, and applied restrictions, even if under temporary basis. In that particular phase, there were necessary steps to be implemented in order to save lives. This was very important. But once emergency is over, any restriction should be lifted, and that's clear. And so Therefore, I think then it will be the time to turn back to the former freedoms. So, and this is the topic of the next presentation by Professor Claudio Di Maio. Claudio, first of all, welcome to this meeting and thanks for accepting our invitation. Just a few words to present you. Claudio, to our experts. So Claudio is an assistant professor of European Union law at the University of Calabria and is also assistant researcher of the Jean Monnet project Digital Citizenship for EU at the University of Roma Tre. He achieved a PhD on enterprise, state and market and fundamental rights and civil liberties, and is also a researcher in several projects, international projects. And personally, I could say that I have lost the count of your numerous written contributions, so articles, essays on the topic of European rights, citizenship, integration, and so on. So just to shift from the practice to the theory, I'm very glad to ask to Claudio to take the floor. And it's the moment, Claudio, to go back to the future. That's that's the title of the whole meeting. That means to go back to the former freedoms in some way. So what we would like to listen from you, how digital tools can contribute in managing pandemic and making in the same time, possibly, free movement more user-friendly. And from your wide experience, what should we expect in terms of EU citizens' rights in a digital society? So, are we ready for a digital EU citizenship? So please take the floor, and we are very interested in hearing your ideas and your presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to you and all people that are involved in this important research project. First of all, it's a real pleasure for me to be here, and I want to express my thanks to IDOS and the promoter of this important research project, because dealing with the creation of user-friendly mobility in Europe is no easy now, especially considering the period and the times we are still facing, as we have already seen in the excellent previous presentation. Thank you very much, Stanislava, really for your speech. I have the onerous role to discuss with you how information support and digital communication in intra-European mobility could be improved, especially after the intervention of Mrs. Moretti. The topic is even more crucial if we consider that a few days ago a European digital certificate was issued, more or less at the same time, but it's the first digital certification for the European Union, which should facilitate the restoration, the rehabilitation of free movement between European member states. My speech, as Antonio say, will probably be less technical. I will try to debate with you some political and legal consideration. And certainly I expect from you some ideas and some consideration like stakeholders in this field. I will try now to address this issue, analyzing some points, some simple points that I consider very important. The first, which I summarized under the title, the communication of border, that concern the suspension of free movement and the aspect that directly affected the lives of European citizens during the COVID-19 pandemic. Then the second point we could describe as on the border of rights. I will focus on individuals and how their representation of interest is changing in a digital society. And then finally, the third and the last point I decided to call the need to be digital European citizens, where I will address more concretely, I try to address more concretely the issue concerning the restarting of the European space of freedom, security, and justice. Regarding the first point, we can start by observing that the European Union was born through the idea of free movement within the territories of member states. A free movement that has been extended by treaties and made on an instrument also, thanks to the Lisbon Treaty, made an instrument for the realization of the European single market. So consider this, it's difficult to justify certain restrictions that have sadly happened as a result of a prolonged pandemic situation. Even if it was unexpected and unpredictable. Restrictions that have affected even the most established freedoms for individuals who live on the border every day. I think, for example, on cross-border workers or refugees, or for example, asylum seekers. Probably, in my opinion, the main reason for this progressive return of border controls can be found in the legal framework that member states have chosen to adopt for the management of internal mobility. Article 72 of TFEU provides that Title 5 of the Treaty of the European Union concerning the European space of security, freedom, and justice shall not affect the exercise of the responsibilities incumbent upon member states with regard to preservation of public order and internal security. I try to underline these 2 points because a basic effect of this article is actually present in any preventive reaction put in place by member states to maybe respond, even in the past, for example, in case of migration crisis, to events or supposed threats that are perceived as possible obstacles to the preservation of public security. Not, in this case, European public security, but internal public security. In European Union law, the terms is very, very important in this case. These themes are present in the work of Etienne Balibar for whom borders have become so diffuse that whole countries can now be borderians. For example, choose at the emergence of the European Union's projects of integration. According to Etienne Balibar, a very important professor in this field, once countries had borders, now they are borders. A possible pathology that is often improved by the communication, also, why not, political communication, offers to the citizens affected by this border control reintroduction. We should remember also today that under the so-called Schengen Borders Code, the reintroduction of internal borders control should be an extreme measure for a strictly limited period of time. The necessity and proportionality of reintroducing internal border control should be balanced with the risk, the supposed risk to public order or security. An extension, of course, of this period must be reviewed by the European institution. This brings us the occasion to another point of discussion, in my opinion, the relevance of this measure from a political and legal point of view. In the first case, the re-establishment of borders has been communicated as an imperative symbol of protection, control, and defense. But from the legal point of view, we actually know that this measure, this action, this national action cannot and must not be extended over time, especially if they are not adequately justified and agreed with the other European member states. Another point that I try to make on the table of our discussion, in European Union law, when we talk about territory, we are talking about of every member state. It's precisely the concept of territory, which certainly does not have a classical meaning, but also refers to economic, social, and, for example, market concepts that allows me to introduce the second point, the border of European citizens' rights. Many years ago, the Italian jurist Stefano Rodotà spoke about that space of landless rights, in which the evolution of multi-level protection of freedom is able to offer an higher standard of protection than national states do on their internal legal system. Stefano Rodotà could only imagine that the European Union would facilitate the cross-border use of certain rights in a digital world. I think in privacy, the protection of the human personality online, the right to be forgotten, that are all freedoms that have an ancient flavor, but which today reinforce the construction of a European digital identity. In fact, the rights border, in my opinion, is not only represented by the main task of every national state. It's not only represented by the limitation that member states should prevent in order to ensure respect for the principle of equality between all citizens. But I can add another concept, for example, citizens, and for example, foreigners with the longer stay in the European Union. But also, the new border consists in seeking ways and measures and laws that help everyone to realize the full representation of their interest, even and especially in a digital society. So I try here to suggest a few topics where our stakeholder could give us their opinion. First of all, digital education of citizens is most important in this period, because I discover a situation very, very difficult of obstacles to make really and concrete the participation of citizens in digital sphere, digital area, but also identifying and removing obstacles blocking access to digital rights. It's important because we don't have two typology of citizenship. Citizenship is one, but now I think that citizenship, physical and digital, in this case. For this reason, increasing, for example, trust in digital identity for all citizens and for all citizens users is most important, in my opinion. And then the important goal of this research project, the creation of a safe and user-friendly environment for the citizen user. Because, for example, European Union prevent also in the past all obstacles, for example, for citizen consumer, citizen student, citizen entrepreneur. But today we must prevent all obstacles relating to citizen use. And then protection of human rights in digital platforms and communication. It's most important, because also we have some proposal from European Commission, not only the important legislative text like GDPR, but also the directives that the European Commission with the Single Market Act and Digital Market Act can be developed maybe in the future. In my opinion, internet is the space where many of us represent our legal personality every day. We are already digital citizens, despite the recent problems and despite the recent periods. Today, we can discuss together and rediscover the term of digital immigrant. a new type of migrant who needs to adapt his knowledge to the new language and practice of digital technologies. Of course, the structure of the European population calls many of us for this type of analysis. Finally, I try to discuss with you about the last point of my speech, the importance, the emergency of being a digital European citizen. A few weeks ago, the Digital European COVID certificate was officially launched. A document that claims to facilitate the re-establishment of free movement within the member states through, this is important, through a unique certification of the mobile citizen medical status. This is certainly a strong reminder that the European Commission seems to be particularly committed to the concept of digital identity, which during the proposal project was a source of hope for a faster reintroduction of European mobility. Therefore, the COVID digital certificate already has a number of qualities that we should highlight. First, it's a digital certification. It's very, very important. Applicable to all participating member states. It's an experiment, but not only for IT solution, but also for legal solution of this means. It makes use, for the reason, to the guidelines already drawn up by the European Union for the digital identity. But also it's released free of charge and through a multi-platform identification system. This is very, very important point because we can try to trust in faith from the European population in this system, in these digital systems. And finally, I think that the green pass, like in Italian we can know, encourage confidence in the use of digital identities across the border. After all, this is a document that is part of the wallet, with the words of the European Commission, that every European citizen can or must always have available on his or her hand. A document that, if you want to be even more analytical, does not differ, in my opinion, from the approach already used for European citizenship rights, which has developed in European Union treaties like additional freedoms which add to but don't replace the liberties provided at a national level. Given that the competence of the European Union, as I already say, are limited and especially are subordinate to the member states' action, we could immediately point out that the success of this measure will depend on first progressive removal of border restriction, like Mrs. Moretti said, but also make digital certificate as an access standard in the European member state. It's very difficult, in my opinion, but we can try to make it a reality. But also the spread of electronic recognition means, because one of the practical problems are the confidential use of electronic means by the European citizens population. And then batching supply and distribution. This is a simple but important topic. Last but not least, removal of other further restriction. And in this point, I try to underline that this restriction can be in a legislative way, for example, not only quarantine, but also prevent the request from member states of additional documents, additional documents, plus the COVID pass. These points are not, in my opinion, of minor relevance. Security, health, access to territory, unfortunately, have generated in many countries a use of compression to other fundamental rights, not always in proportional and justified way, like European Union law established. Moreover, some issues could be analyzed concerning the duration and the availability of this certificate, for example, in relation to the internal policies of individual member states. Other possible critical points should be underlined, for example, duration and the station of the certificate over time, fragmentation of policies on access to health in the member states for the European Union citizen, additional obstacles to the social right enjoyment for European citizens. Unfortunately, we don't have yet a space of health European citizen and social rights guarantee in every member state. And finally, possible borders to access, possible barriers to access in other areas, like Stanislava say, for example, work, education, or tourism is most important in this period. So I'm going to conclude indicating some emerging themes which I would like to submit directly to the stakeholders of this meeting. And thank you very much, of course, for these possible ideas. Regarding the first point, are we sure that political communication and the border control approach will not produce a return to policies of containment for intra-European migration over time in some member states? Are we sure that the digital COVID pass is not perceived as viable return to border control in a generalized form, for example. Regarding the borders of rights, are we sure that member states are ready to increase the infrastructure supporting the digital rights of individuals? Because in my opinion, this is a central point. This is a crucial point. Furthermore, can we prevent a simple emergency and no proportional use of these instruments by the member states? I conclude, say some simple ideas. Free movement is not a simple circulation of individuals, goods, services, or capitals. It is the free movement of rights, of experiences, legal subjects, but also models of social and European integration. I remember, first of all, to myself, the words of Miguel Poyares Maduro in the famous Rothman judgment. The citizenship of the European Union represents a community beyond any single member state. A reminder that nobody in the evolution of European integration project should ever forget, in my opinion. Thank you very much for your attention, and sorry if I extend too much my speech. Thank you very much.
Antonio, you have to open your microphone.
Thank you. I'm sorry. So,
Yes.
Claudio, thank you very much. Very quickly, I really thank you because you provided us many food of talks, and but also you provided several questions. But now we are ready for the debate. I've seen there are several experts ready to present their point of view. Before giving them the floor, Claudio, at the end, we will return back on the questions related to the EU digital wallets that was launched in the previous session, because maybe it's strictly linked with your suggestions. But first of all, I would like to give the floor to Julian Oneasca from Romania.
Thank you, Antonio. I was very attentive. I paid attention to Claudio's speech. It was extremely interesting, particularly because he touched upon the foundation of the digital rights. Speaking of the provisions of the EU treaties, from this perspective, I would like to ask a question concerning the possibility that the digital services in general might be included amongst the services of general interest, particularly having in view the development and the digital market that the Union is willing to finalize. And from such a context, could we speak about services of general interest when we talk about services addressing mobile workers? The point is that services of general interest are not sufficiently detailed within the provisions of EU regulations. However, should these be more clearly defined, the possibilities that the member states get closer increased very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Digital service must be close to that person, must be close to the European citizens. This is the approach that the European Commission wants to make common to all European member states. We can assist, we can see this approach, for example, in the proposal that I've launched about a European Union wallet, but also because in other topics that I don't analyze today, but are very close, but that are very close to this theme, this research project, for example, artificial intelligence and use of artificial intelligence. But it's a proposal. European Commission don't have in a current structure of European governance the possibility to influence the legislative process. Legislative process is a task of the European Parliament, of course, but also the member states. Okay. For this reason, I think that when we're talking about our borders, we can take in advance that the main point that the management of borders is a main task of single member states. Only with the modification of treaties, we can ensure a very common management of borders and, of course, of rights, because the borders are also in the digital sphere. Regarding the second question, can you repeat, please?
It was not one or two questions. The idea was generally considering the possibility to improve the services of general interests by including digital services in general, and in particular, services addressed to mobile workers. The idea that does not exist on the single market.
Okay. I think that is a good idea, because I think I return in the concept of unique citizen. We don't have true citizenship. We have physical citizenship and then digital citizenship, because I think that any citizen can represent its interest in any part of social representation, physical representation like worker, but also digital representation like work. In this way, the European Commission, for example, maybe can propose a regulation for improve services for cross-border workers, or for example, to improve a digital integration of every European citizen in another member states, because also this is a main point in my opinion. I don't know if I respond to us.
So thank you very much, Claudio. Very complex question. Maybe we should spend more time, but let's continue. And now it's the turn of Miruna Kishpaneanu. She's an old friend for me, and we are editing a book together that will presented in September, at the end of September, about Romanians in Italy. So She knows the topic of mobility very well. She's a journalist and a researcher. Please, Miruna, take the floor.
Thank you very much, Antonio, and thanks to Claudio. I think we saw the pandemic was an useful crisis because we started to talk about digital European citizenship, and this is very important. Unfortunately, in Italy, we are stuck in medieval times. On this point of view, we have ministers, we have secretaries of state, which are aiming to reach this digital European identity. But my question is, and the problem is, how can we make institutions, local institutions, local administration, state institution, to get to this digital European citizenship reality or identity? And I take an example, for instance, I'm researching the electoral voting rights for European mobile citizens. And this year we will have local elections in like seven major cities in Italy. In Rome, there are 80,000 Romanian which have the right to vote, but have to subscribe to get the electoral tessera, the card. And you have to go physically to one office to get this subscription done. So how can we make this institution get ready for the future? Because we are stuck in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions and ideas. I totally agree with you with some aspect, above all on electoral rights. I try to resume because the time is over. The starting point, in my opinion, is education, digital education, at every level of the statal education, but also of local education. When I'm talking about education, I refer to, for example, education to use, not only to use digital instruments or digital services, but also to prevent some erroneous use of fatal use of instruments in this case. And regarding your question about the enjoyment of rights, and above all electoral rights of European citizens, I think that we can see at European citizenship like a big project. But when the member states, the European member states in Maastricht approves the European citizenship, we can make a negotiation, because European citizenship can add but not substitute the national citizenship, and this is a problem because also thanks with the judgment of the European Court of Justice, or for example, for some best practice in Europe, I think in Estonia, for example, or in Ireland, the European citizenship is now the basic status, legal status for many people. The problem of the electoral rights is basically that every people can express your right singing in a list. In my opinion, electoral rights, political participation rights are human rights opinion, and for this reason, every citizen that and every European citizen that live in another member state can access in an automatic way in electoral rights, because we don't have a European unique population without a European unique political participation.
Thank you, Claudio. I will read a few written messages and then I will ask for the last question. So the first one, I could say it's a case of serendipity. I mean, it's an unplanned, fortunate case because one of the participants, a famous Italian journalist, Gianluca Cicinelli, left the meeting writing to us that is ready to launch a review, a journal called Diogenes.
Wow.
So Diogenes is the ancient Greek philosopher that has got the copyright of Eureka, that is an ancient Greek verb meaning I found it. So he's going to launch in September this review, and this is really an unplanned cases. And the target will be the poorties. And don't forget that also in the context of intra-EU mobilities, we have also problems related to poorties. So to EU mobile citizens facing problems because refused of their own rights, because sometimes because belonging to certain minorities, or sometimes because they under homeless conditions and so on. They find themselves in a limbo situations. So we face this topic in the handbook, but this is an unsolved problem. And maybe what we could expect from the digital progresses on this field, maybe not so much. But the second comment was the one again related to the digital wallets. Our friend from each said we are close. We have an amendment proposal of the regulation 910 2014, and within this proposal of amendment there is the instrument of digital wallets, EU digital wallets. So, what is your knowledge and what is your point of view, Claudio? And before answering to this topic, I would like to ask if we have the last question from the public, and then we will close.
Okay. Okay.
I saw a pen. So maybe Luca would like to ask something.
Okay.
Rising pen. Just a moment, Claudio, please, Luca.
Okay, for my question now, okay. Okay. Yes, the question concerns the relationships between digital communication and borders. You have just raised the topic at the beginning of your speech. So we have been seeing in these last years the externalization of borders, of European borders, just to stop migration flows coming from third countries, and also to overcome the no-refoulement principle, as we know, on one end. And on the other end, we have been seeing the multiplication of internal borders for all, even for European citizens, by means of new walls, policy station, and so on. So the question is, in both this case, Europe has been acting on the border of legality and on the border of rights, as you highlighted, especially in respect of the treaties and the values of on the basis of which the European community was founded. And so the question is, what perspectives we all can expect from the opportunities of digital communication and of digital tools in Europe that, as we know, operate without borders, connect people overcoming space and territories, and create a very global and transnational community concerning the job, the interests, the social insertion, and so on, and also opening new ways to live and a new sense of belonging.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I try to to answer in few words. Homeless and digital society. It's very, very important to ensure the inclusion of all parts of European society. In these aspects, in these topics, for example, the European Commission make many efforts, but we don't expect from the European Union some that the member states don't have recognized yet to European Union competence. In my opinion, it's a crucial task of every member state to consider the citizenship community like group formed by all representation of community. I think that it's a good way to improve, for example, digital services, but not only digital services at local level, but also encourage, improve the access to digital identity for all the people, free of charge, with a little bit of digital education, also enforced by, for example, social services. It's an idea, but it's possible if you want. Regarding the problem of the topic of wallet launched, proposed by the European Commission. Yes, of course, it's the regulation. It is the regulation amended to digital identity, and in my opinion, it's a good regulation because, above all, because it's a regulation and not a directive. A simple directive can make many possibilities for the state to interpretation of regulation. In this case, we have all points to follow from the European Commission. And in my opinion, it's a good way to reinforce the belonging, like Luca said, the belonging to make part of unique European Union citizenship. And for the last very important question, thank you very much, Luca. I think that I try organize with you a conference about these things because I'm very I consider very important your ideas. I have on one hand a big fear. The digital COVID certification, it's a good idea from European Commission, but I don't want that a COVID certification become another passport on another limit for the free movement. This is a fear, but also I look forward to the opportunity, the first opportunity that we have to share all together a unique digital document like European citizens. And in this case, I think, for example, in the possible launch of a European identity card, or for example, European passport, because I think the European citizenship are changing despite the single national citizen.
Thank you very much. Very interesting, Claudio. Thank you.
So I beg your pardon for two reasons. The first one, because we have to end the meeting. And the second reason, because we have a little delay. And this is typical in Italy. But
sorry for my extension.
Oh, don't worry, it's just an organizational matter. So I'm really grateful to Stanislava and to Claudio for their presentations. I'm really equally grateful to all the experts, to all the attendees for their own heartfelt participation. So, I would like to ask to Norbert just to say a final greeting to all the participants on behalf of ACLI of Germany. Please, Norbert.
Yes, thank you very much to all of you. It was a wonderful and very interesting and very ambitious meeting, I think. I'm very glad that you had so much patience to stay with us, that so many of you have been with us. I would like also to thank, as Antonio did, to all the people who have been involved, hearing, speaking, presenting. I think it was a really excellent meeting. I'm very happy. I'm happy with you, and I hope we will see us again in a final conference that we will do maybe in the second part of this year. And I hope, and I'm sure that we learned a lot of this for today. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye to you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations to all.